Hello.
Okay,
Happy Wednesday.
happy Wednesday. Um, I hope this is one of those days where I don't just start like rambling nonsense and fucking up all my words because I just intake, whatever, so much fucking sugar because I just ate all these candied nuts and I must have eaten like three-quarters of a fairly large size bag. And I am just I don't even need coffee. I'm on a fucking sugar high right now.
I'm obsessed with those. I love them. I buy like the big, huge thing from Costco and I go through it like once a week. Like it's really bad. Like if we go to the fair or like a carnival, you know how everyone will get like funnel cakes? I go and I get the warm, like candy
Warm
roasted
nuts.
nuts. Oh my gosh. It's like the best treat ever.
Yep, I love those. Yeah, and I've been trying not to eat like, candied sugar stuff, but man, I can't help it. I found these nuts in Tesco and I bought like 4 bags the last time we went to the store.
See, I try to justify it in my mind. Like, well, it's nuts. Those are healthy. It's good, healthy fats. Forget the fact that it's like coated in sugar and shit that's not good for you. I mean, it's nuts. So it's fine. It's better than a candy bar, right?
Well, that's what I told myself when I was eating them. So I have to ask you, are you a Martha Stewart fan?
Okay, I never was, but I have been seeing clips from her new show and I'm like, I gotta watch this because she seems cool as shit.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I finished watching this documentary on her today. It's called Martha, and I was so surprised. She's snarky. Like there's a real bitch side to her, but she is fucking funny. And I didn't really pay much attention to like the details of her trial when she went to prison. And I think it was back in 2004. And I always assumed that it was for insider trading because that's what the whole
Yeah.
case was about. But I guess they never actually had any proof that she was involved in insider trading. And her prison sentence was for obstruction and making false statements to the FBI. And I don't know how one-sided the, documentary was, but they made it sound like the feds really just wanted to make an example of her. And guess who was the mastermind behind the whole fucking thing?
Who?
James Comey.
Oh my God. Okay, well, that makes me question all of it then, because that guy
Exactly.
is shady as hell. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
God, I gotta
you've
watch
got
it
to watch it.
now.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I
totally
didn't
do.
realize, like, because she always, growing up, it was like, oh, Martha Stewart, so wholesome. And like, she is not like that. Like, she was talking about
No.
affairs and like, I mean, she gives zero fucks. And I was like, I
Yeah.
really respect that. I really do. So I gotta watch it now because I've only seen clips on TikTok.
Yeah, it's only like an hour and a half, and
Oh,
I thought
okay.
it was really good. And side note, she is like stunningly beautiful for a woman in her 70s.
Yeah.
Like, I think she looks better now than she did when she was younger.
Okay, well, we're gonna do a whole conspiracy episode at some point on that because there are actresses and actors that look like they're 20 that like have reversed in aging. Like they look younger than they did 20 years ago and I there is something going on.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, like, have you looked at recent pictures of Sandra Bullock or Courtney Cox? Like, they're both 60 and
Yeah.
they look incredible.
Here's one for you. Go look up Shania Twain. You will be like, what the heck? Is that a clone? Is that a robot? Like it looks nothing like her. Kate Beckinsale. Like
Mhm.
it's almost creepy because it's like you don't see them forever and then they emerge and it doesn't even look like them, but it looks like a 20-year-old version of like, I don't know. It's just weird. So I want to like dive into that at some point because there's something they're doing that we're not aware of.
Yeah, and it's not the creepy, like, when people get so much plastic surgery, they have like the cat
Yeah, it's
lady
not
face.
that.
It's not that. They look good. So,
Yeah. I think they have access to something that the rest of us don't. And that's why they look like they're getting younger instead of getting older. So,
yeah, and I need to find out what that is.
yeah.
But on to politics. But before we okay, there's so much awesomeness going on with Trump's cabinet picks. But before we dive into that, do we or do we not have the House?
I thought we did.
I
Now you're
keep
making me
hearing,
nervous. We don't?
well, I keep hearing that we did, but every time I look, it's still like there's still a bunch of open seats. And it's 207 to 216 right now. But if you look at the map, there's still a bunch of outstanding seats in Arizona, California, and Arkansas and Iowa.
Okay, well, this makes me nervous because AOC, like for I don't know how, but like somehow I ended up on her side of TikTok. And there's all these people that are like, don't lose hope yet. Like, go listen to AOC. She's making it sound like she knows something that we don't, and things are going to turn around. So just wait, just be patient. And I'm like, what the hell are they plotting? Because and that could be it. It's like, okay, well, Trump won by such a landslide, they can't rig that, but they can possibly rig the House seats. That's what I'm wondering, because why else would it be taking so long?
Yeah, because it's 9 seats. It's a 9 seat lead right now. So, and I don't know how many are still outstanding, but it just seems really freaking weird to me that it's taking this long.
It is weird. There's definitely something shady. I just feel good about it because every time I hear Trump or like anyone on his side talking about it, they're just talking about it as like it's a given. It's just not like
Yeah.
confirmed yet. So that gives me hope.
Well, I hope so, but I do want to call attention to something that Trump did say recently. Like, you know how we were talking on Monday about how he won the popular vote and like
Mhm.
it was a historic thing for Republicans. And he put a post on Truth Social, I think it was Monday night. And like I've been worried prior to the election. I was worried about Texas starting to turn purple because, especially during the midterms last year, I saw so many signs for Beto O'Rourke, who was the Democrat candidate running against Governor Abbott. And I was like, fuck, Texas. I moved here. They can't fucking turn blue because then I have to leave and go somewhere else. And like with everything that happened with all this immigration bullshit, like I was very concerned. But I saw this post from Trump on Truth Social, and he was like expressing his thanks for winning the popular vote. And he wrote, quote, in the great state of Texas, won 31 of 32 statewide judicial benches and every county in the Rio Grande Valley. They were all blue 8 years ago, and I got 1 million more Texas votes than in 2020, end quote. So I thought that was fucking cool. And it made me feel really proud to say I live in the great state of Texas, even though I'm not currently there.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt with Florida because I told you I was worried with all the people that moved here
Yeah.
from New York. And I mean, it turned way more red than it was in 2020. So, just a good sign all around. And I know like I should be the bigger person, but I cannot help but just love watching the leftists and the mainstream media. Like they're just now having the realization that like, man, we fucked up. And it's
Yes.
so funny because it's like we've been talking about this for years. They're just now realizing, like, for example, 60 Minutes did an interview where they're asking a pollster what went wrong with Kamala's campaign. I'm like, lesson number one, don't trust pollsters anymore. Like, sorry, guys, you got it wrong like multiple times. And they're like, it turns out that most Americans are concerned about grocery prices more than transgender rights. And it's like, really?
You think?
Like you're just now putting the pieces together, and it's so funny to watch. And then I keep coming across clips of The View, and these women are all like turning on each other. It's like two against three or whatever. They're blaming each other. Like CNN is doing mass layoffs. MSNBC, since the election, their viewership dropped like 54%, where Fox News gained 61%. It's like
Really?
the whole thing's falling apart. And I should be like a nicer person, but I'm just like, want to be like, ha, like told you. It's like I'm just eating it up. And I know that's wrong, but I can't. It's been years of hell. I gotta
Oh,
enjoy this needs its moment. I gotta enjoy it a little bit.
I was going to say that makes two of us because I am feeling the same. And especially right now when I'm seeing all of these stories in the MSM where they're having complete fucking meltdowns over the picks that Trump is choosing for his cabinet. And so, like, there's so much speculation still about who's remaining. But We need to talk about who some of his confirmed picks are, Stephanie.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about this because I knew you were already sleeping when, like, last night he just started posting boom, boom, boom on Truth Social. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. I got so excited because they're all really good, in my opinion. So the one that I am super excited about that we kind of knew, but there's a little twist on it, is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. And that surprised me because we knew Elon, but I'm like, this is so genius to have both of them like team up because it's such a big thing they're going to tackle. And so Trump posted, quote, together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies, essential to the Save America movement. And it's like these guys are absolutely the best people for the job. And the fact that he's appointed two of his like top people to that just shows how serious he is about actually following through and totally dismantling like all of this bullshit with these alphabet agencies that have
Yeah.
put the country through hell.
I just like you, I was super excited when I saw this. And when I woke up this morning, that's when I looked at Truth Social again. And I'm like, holy shit, he did. He had just like went bam, 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 posted one after the other. But this is the one that has me the most excited because we've talked about this so many times. We need a complete government overhaul. And there's nobody better to do it, right? And one of the things Trump said in his post was that it was going to be an entrepreneurial approach to government that we've never seen before. And like, who better than like two completely successful entrepreneurs like Vivek and Elon Musk? And have you been seeing the shit that Elon's been posting? Because,
I haven't really been on X a whole lot,
okay,
so no.
okay, it's awesome. He's posted so much. He actually posted clips of a conversation that he had with Tucker where he was saying, look, we have like 428 federal agencies, and like most of them are ones people haven't even heard of. And we should be able to cut it down to like 99 and completely run the government. And he said, like, reducing all of these needless jobs, it's not the quote threat to democracy that the left thinks it is, but it's instead a threat to bureaucracy. And like, side note, I was reading in the Washington Times that just the Health and Human Services Department alone, you know how their whole DEI agenda, they employ almost 300 DEI employees and they have 7 minority health offices. And these people are paid like well over six-figure salaries. So yeah, I'd say a major overhaul is like long overdue.
And this is something that I think the people on the left should agree with as well. Like, I don't know one single person I have ever met in my life that's like, oh, yeah, our government is running efficiently. It's like a joke, like that the government, has all these employees that don't really do a whole lot and get paid a ton and have great benefits. And I'm sorry, 300 DEI people for one department. And he's absolutely right with the hundreds of agencies we don't even know about.
Yeah.
That woman that wrote the book about DARPA, she's like, yeah, everyone knows about DARPA, but there's like 10 other agencies that are even worse that you've never even heard of. And so, I mean, like Elon and they're smart and they're efficient. They'll have this straightened out like fast.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things is they're doing something similar to like what RFK Jr. is doing with that website, because Elon talked about how the department's going to take suggestions and concerns from everyday Americans about how the government spends money, and all the department actions are going to be posted online. They want it to be like totally transparent. And he said, quote, anytime the public thinks that we're cutting something important or not cutting something wasteful, just let us know. We'll also have a leaderboard for the most insanely dumb spending of your tax dollars. This will be both extremely tragic and extremely entertaining, end quote. And Vivek, like, same thing. He said he and Elon are not going to go gently. And, like, in theory, this is fucking amazing, right? But it's going to depend on Congress because that's who has authority over federal budget changes. So we really need to have that consensus in the House and the Senate. And that's where, like, this teetering with the Senate, I'm sorry, with the House has me a little bit worried. And even if we do have the majority in both chambers, that doesn't mean they're all going to go along with what Trump or Vivek or Elon want to do, because we've already seen how the Uniparty and the rhinos in Congress have fucked us for the last 4 years. So I'm going to be totally hopeful, but I do think that they're up against some really big challenges with this.
Well, yeah, and I heard that Mitch McConnell, instead of gracefully, stepping down because he's old as fuck and like clearly doesn't like he's super deep state, and letting Rick Scott take the reins because that's what the American people wanted, he's now calling for a secret vote, meaning we're not going to be able to tell who voted for who so that he can install his deep state candidate that's going to like buck the system. So it's just like, you know, I think there are going to be some battles, but in the end, like, I don't know. I think all these guys are super efficient. I think they'll figure out a way. And okay, I posted on TikTok about that episode where we were talking about RFK setting up the website where people can have a say. And like the very first comment was like, haha, yeah, right. They're not going to do that. They're not going to listen to the people. Okay, well, look at what Elon does now with Twitter. Every move he makes, he asks the people first. Like everything he did at Twitter, all about politics and Trump. Like he does polls left and right to get a feel for what the people want. And that's what he fucking does. So I believe it. I really do.
But I see why people are hesitant, because it's never fucking been done in our
Right.
lifetime. It has never been what the people want. It's
Yep.
always been government bureaucracy. So this literally would be something historic that we've never seen before. And that's why I'm so excited for it.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes through and they don't screw with things in the House and Senate.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. But okay, you know how we talked on Monday about Tom Homan being put in charge
Yeah.
of national security? Have you seen the fucking drama with the left, like losing their shit over him? Like, he's made it very clear he doesn't believe in sanctuary cities. And he told Fox News that they're basically just sanctuaries for criminals, which is true. And he's completely on board with the whole process of deporting illegal migrants. And so the left has been having major meltdowns. And I was listening to yesterday's Real AF episode. And I just want to play a clip of what Andy Frisella had to say about it, because I always love his point of view. And as usual, I completely agree with his viewpoint on Homan.
Bring in Tom Holman. Is that him? That's him. That's OG. Holy shit, dude. That's hilarious. That guy looks like a real American, bro. Yeah, bro, you don't really get any more American than that. Maybe Burt Reynolds, maybe. Yeah, it's giving some Burt Reynolds vibe. It is, bro. Hey, listen, I like what that dude has to say. A lot of people think he's that guy is a fucking old enough to know reality. He understands that not everybody's good. He understands that not everybody's coming to your house for the barbecue. He understands that sometimes you got to do hard things that people don't agree with in order to protect and serve the greater good. And there's all these people in this country, like we have talked about for many years, who have never experienced anything real in terms of very bad shit. Even the people who think they're experiencing bad are a million times better off than people in other parts of the world. And so we have a bunch of spoiled people who don't have to deal with criminal elements or the reality of criminals or the savagery of criminals or the understanding that there are no moral laws amongst these types of people, men who are trying to survive. A man who is in a position trying to survive will fucking do anything to survive, okay? To survive, they got to reproduce. Where are they going to reproduce if they're not bringing any women over? The answer should be obvious, okay? Very simple. But because people think that everybody's like them and everybody has a good heart and everybody believes that, people are good, they don't fucking understand it. And this man has seen enough in his life to understand that these are things that we have to deal with, okay? That's called being a realist. We need people like that. We need a lot of people like that. In fact, that's the man's job in society. The man's job in society is to recognize things for what they are, for the truth, address them however it need to be addressed to protect everybody else. And that's what he's doing. And people don't like it because they're in this little bubble called the United States of America where no one starves and everybody's fucking overweight because they they have too much abundance and not enough like hardship. That's the truth. You know, people say, "Oh, the fucking, it's so hard here." Hard compared to what? Compared to who? Compared to where? Okay. And when we lose that perspective, we end up in a bubble where we don't realize that there are people that will take your shit. They will take your shit. They will take your house. They will take your wife. They will take your life. They do not fucking care. And so I am thankful that men like this still exist who are old school, hardened motherfuckers that are going to say, hey, I don't give a fuck what you guys say about me. I'm going to do this job, even if you hate me for doing it, because it's going to protect your kids. I love that guy. I don't even fucking know him. Yes.
I love that.
I know. I know. And I've been seeing so many clips of Homan because he does not care. Like he does not let
Yeah.
anyone talk down to him. Like he spits it right back. And he was saying, because one of the reporters, was like, well, it's gonna cost like however many millions of dollars to deport everyone. And he's like, oh yeah, well, what price would you put on our national security? It's like best answer, one liner takes her down. Um, another interview, the interviewer was like, well, I mean, is there a way to keep families together? And he's like, well, of course there is. We can deport the entire family
Yes.
together.
I saw that.
And she looks horrified and he's like, look, I was a cop. When there was a dad who was drinking and driving, guess what? I had to remove the child from the dad in that vehicle. When there was domestic violence, I had to remove the family and separate them. Like this is life. You break the law, you don't get to stay with your family. And I'm like, he is so good at just making common sense out of the way they try to spin it into this bad thing. And I just like, I'm so happy about this.
Yeah, and now I can't get the image of him as Burt Reynolds out of my mind.
Right.
But and I read several articles about how like Border Patrol personnel are really excited about him. And like people that were thinking of leaving the job are gonna stay because they want to work under him. And to me, that says like this is a great pick. So, and like speaking of him, he's gonna be working closely with Trump's pick for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. So I
She's
was
like
a
one of
little
your favorites, right?
Yes, well, yeah. I remember like, oh my God, back in was it the midterms where we were talking about her? No,
Yes.
was it? Because I was still in Texas and she was running and
Oh,
or
maybe it
something. Or
wasn't
we
the
were, no,
midterms.
no, it was when she was she running for president? I have no fucking idea. It was like 2 years ago. She was running for
You know what? I
something.
think they were like debating that she could be a pick for like VP. I think maybe it was like had to do with that or something, right?
No, I remember. We were talking about our like favorite politicians that were
Oh,
standing
okay.
up and
Yeah.
doing positive shit for America. And I remember now because I said one of the reasons I really liked her was because she was one of the only governors in the country who didn't put her state on lockdown for even one day during COVID.
Mhm.
And so I did you see a couple months ago all the shit going around about how she killed a puppy because it was uncontrollable and like the dog had killed some chickens and like the MSM was like having a field day with, oh, she's a puppy killer. And so now that Trump picked her, I'm seeing all these articles like Trump picks puppy killer for Homeland Security. But it's like, you know what? I guess that's not an issue when it comes to protecting the border because in his Truth Social post, Trump talked about how she was the first governor to send National Guard troops to Texas to help with the border crisis, and she sent them 8 fucking times. And until the puppy incident, I heard nothing but good things about her. So honestly, I'm excited, and I think she's going to be a good choice.
I think so too. And it's like, honestly, do you want someone that's soft for Homeland Security?
Nope.
No. Like, so yeah, like I love puppies, obviously, but I didn't personally read her book. It was something she wrote in her book. So if you're gonna write something in your own book, clearly like you're gonna feel confident about it. So in my opinion, the media has probably twisted it and taken it out of context. So I'm not gonna judge it till I read the book. But you know what? Like she's good at her job. So I'm great with it.
Yeah. And like another side note, I don't know if you saw this, but Mayor Adams, the sanctuary city king, whose
Hmm.
city is housing an estimated 412,000 illegal migrants. Well, he just said he wants to work with Trump's team. So he gave a press conference where he basically slammed Biden and he said, quote, I'm willing to sit down with this administration, meaning Trump's, like I tried to sit down with the previous administration in my 10 trips to Washington to say we have a problem that's overrunning our cities. The voters have said we need to secure our border. We need to make sure cities are not experiencing what New York City is experiencing. Let's fix our immigration system. If we don't have a conversation about fixing the system, everything else is just being philosophical and theoretical, and I'm not going to engage in that, end quote. Well, here's what I have to say, okay, Mr. Adams, like, let me give you a little tip. You can start by getting rid of your sanctuary city status, and you can hand those 412,000 illegal migrants that you're harboring over to Tom Homan, and he'd be happy to send them back across the border.
Yeah. So I was shocked. I mean, this guy, I feel like now that they're going after him criminally or whatever, he is not holding back. He went off on this reporter that was like, so are you not going to stand up for against this mass deportation and listen to the people of New York? And he was like, excuse me, do you think that every single New Yorker wants illegals taking over and they're not for deportation? And she's like, well, no, but you once said you were against deportation. He's like, I'm here to advocate for the people of New York. And there's a lot of people from New York that don't want them here. And she just kept going back and forth. And he's like, okay, so who should I advocate for? The people that you agree with? Is that the right answer? And he like totally called her out and put her in her place. And I was like, damn. So I gotta
But it,
say, like, if it weren't for him though, like, would the whole country have been
right.
aware of like what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
agree with you on that, but it's the fact that like you're still a sanctuary city. Like all you're doing is
Yeah,
contributing to the problem.
right. Like, and that should have been ended a long time ago when he started complaining. So,
Yeah,
like, yeah, you're not
exactly.
getting a position in the Trump administration, Adams. Okay. I think he's probably just hoping to be pardoned at this point.
I read there was an anchor from CNN who's trying to get a position. I don't remember who it was, and I didn't write
I
anything down
wonder if
about
it's
it.
that girl, because remember, like, before the election, there was this woman, I don't know her name, but I reckon I would know her face. Every segment she did was like in favor of Trump. And I remember thinking, like, is she trying to get a job? Because she was not talking that way a year ago. And so maybe
Huh.
she was just trying to like get on his good side.
I
Wonder if
guess
it's
we'll see if
works.
he picks anybody from CNN.
Yeah.
But one of the others that he did confirm as a pick was Mike Walls for National Security Advisor. And I'm having such a struggle with Walls and Waltz
Oh,
now
I know.
after the last 6 months of Tim Walls. But Mike Waltz has actually a pretty significant military history. He's a retired colonel. He was in the Army Special Forces for 20 years. He was the first Green Beret elected to Congress. He's had multiple combat deployments, and he's got a pretty solid background in national security. I guess he's written books about China and Russia and Iran and global terrorism. And he's been a senior member in like several of the House committees, like Armed Services, Foreign Affairs, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And so I'm kind of excited about this one.
Yeah, surprisingly, I know nothing about him. I never came across like anything he's done. But I did find a clip that I'm going to play that gives you a little taste of his style. So listen to this. Taking over means Al Qaeda 3.0 comes roaring back. Except now we're in a worse position than we were before 2001. We have no bases in the region. Our local allies are being hunted down as we speak. And as you've heard today, the Taliban are going to be armed to the teeth so that when future American soldiers have to go back in to deal with the problem and deal with the incompetence of this administration, how many are going to die now? Because they're going to have to fight their way through our own equipment, our own damn equipment, to deal with Al Qaeda 3.0. Are we going to have another Pulse nightclub? Are we going to have another San Bernardino? Are we going to have another 9/11?
because of that incompetence.
I like him.
Yeah, I do too.
Like what a refreshing change. Like he's on it. He's fired up and ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. So far, everybody. I've been happy with everybody.
Mhm.
Now, one I don't know too much about either, Elise Stefanik. She was his pick for ambassador to the UN. And I had to look her up because I know the name, but I don't know much of her background. And I guess she was the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. She's the highest ranking woman in Congress as the House Republican Conference Chair. And I guess she was the first member of Congress to endorse Trump. So that's awesome. And she's a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. And I guess she led the charge against anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like you will love her. She's incredibly smart. And she's the reason those college the leaders of the college campuses were forced, to resign. Like she went after them and she's so masterful in the way she does it. And so I think for someone to stand up at the UN, like she's gonna have a strong voice.
Okay, now that I'm remembering this, I think you played clips of
Yes.
the hearings for
Hmm.
that whole thing. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
she is solid. She's good. She's smart. I don't get the sense at all that she's ever been one of those politicians that's like bought and paid for. So I think she's a great pick.
Okay, and what about Mike Huckabee? Because he's going to be Trump's ambassador to Israel.
I love Mike Huckabee. I just think he's like, I don't know. I think he's a good guy. Um, I have no idea though his stance on all of that. So I can't say if he'd be good or bad, but him as a person, I think he's great.
I know the name. I didn't look up much about his politics because he's not a governor. He's not the governor anymore. He was the governor of Arkansas. And
Yeah, and his daughter was Trump's press secretary, and
oh,
she's
that's
now the
right.
governor.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and he's just a likable guy. He's like so down to earth and you just want to like I don't know, like hang out with him. So I like he seems like a genuinely good guy, although I don't know what any of his policies are because he has been out of it for so long. So I
Yeah.
was kind of surprised he's kind of like coming out of semi-retirement, I guess. You know who did surprise me is Pete Hegseth. He's
Yes.
a Fox News host, who I love. I love his personality. I've seen him, for years on Fox. I didn't even know he was an Army combat veteran, but he's going to be the Secretary of Defense. And he's been super involved in fighting for veterans. Like he's written all these books about it. Like the last one, I think it was called The War on Our Warriors. And so I didn't know all that side of him, but he's been very outspoken. And so I came across a clip, I guess recently he went on the Sean Ryan show and started talking about like what can be done at this point in time to fix the military and recruit people. So listen to this.
Course corrected, but it would take the new Trump administration going after it really hard. How would they correct it? Well, first of all, you got to fire. You got to fire the chairman of Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. That's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, I don't know, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I at least, for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
Getting rid of DEI. I love it.
That just the fact alone that he wants to get rid of the woke shit in the military is enough to get my vote. And like this guy, I'm assuming you've seen him on Fox. He's pretty decent looking and he's got like this badass image going on underneath that suit. And
I
I
was
saw
just gonna say that because I've seen him on Fox News where he's in his suit, and I
yeah.
am not like I don't like pretty guys suits, that whole thing. On Sean Ryan, like he has his sleeves rolled up, he has tattoos, and I was
Yes.
like, oh my God, this guy is like gorgeous. So
Yes,
good.
he's got all these military tattoos and like it's hot. So
Yeah, we've got a new
I'm up for
crush.
it. Yeah, exactly. And like the MSM's talking about how he's inexperienced and the Pentagon's stunned that Trump made this decision. But I have to think like at this point, unlike during his first presidency, Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He has a very strategic plan in place. And I think I'm just trusting that he's the right choice. And this made me even more confirmed in that thought. So Senator Elizabeth Warren, she posted this shit on X and she's getting like crazy backlash for her comments about him. And so she said, quote, a Fox and Friends weekend co-host is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense. I lead the Senate Military Personnel Panel. All three of my brothers served in uniform. I respect every one of our service members. Donald Trump's pick will make us less safe and must be rejected, end quote. So she got fucking lit up by some awesome responses. And I just want to read a few of them. And these were all in the Daily Wire. So this one guy, Evan Berryhill, he wrote, quote, you left out his resume, 20 years of military service, 2 Bronze Stars, degrees from Princeton and Harvard, active with veteran organizations since leaving active duty. You can go ahead and sit this one out, Senator, end quote. And then Sean Davis from The Federalist said similar things about his military history and added, quote, you falsely claimed to be an Indian to get a job you couldn't get on merits. Sit down, Pocahontas. End
Oh, I
quote.
love it.
I
That's the
know.
best one.
It is. And then this guy who calls himself IT guy, he also commented on like the decorated military history. And then he said, quote, characterizing him as simply a Fox News host is a despicable lie of omission. This bullshit is why your party was wiped out in the election. Are you all not capable of learning anything, or do you just plan to keep imploding? End quote.
No, seriously. Like, and that's the thing, the people that aren't learning from that and are going to continue to try to like peddle lies, they're just destroying themselves and their party. But you want to know what I think of when I see Pete Hegseth? I think make America masculine again. Like,
Mm,
does that guy not just
yes.
ooze like masculinity in like the best possible way? And it's like, what better person to put in charge of reshaping our military and
Yep.
recruiting people that can actually do the job and aren't going to get offended by everything? Like,
Yeah.
I'm eating it up. Like, this is a good pick.
Yeah, and if you need motivation, you can go look him up online, and there's all these pictures of him in uniform, and it. I'm just
I don't
saying.
have a feeling we're going to be playing a lot of Pete Hegseth clips. It's going to be like the new Josh Hawley.
Yes, I mean, I still can't give up Josh Hawley, but yeah, this is coming in pretty close.
Yep.
But another name that I'm not totally familiar with is Lee Zeldin, and Trump picked him for administrator of the EPA. And I read that he's a former congressman from New York, and I guess he ran for governor back in 2022, and he made national headlines because he got the most votes for a Republican candidate since Rockefeller over 50 years ago. And he's another Army veteran. He served over 2 decades. He was elected to the New York State Senate in 2010, and he's been in Congress since 2014. And I'm curious to see what he does with EPA regulations. And I was reading in the New York Post earlier that he's going to try to reverse the whole electric vehicle mandate bullshit that Biden has been pushing. And instead, he's going to focus on what we should have been doing all along, which is more gas and oil drilling and new nuclear power technology. But he also promotes like reasonable green energy goals. So I think he has the potential to be like a really good balance of logic and conservationism at the same time.
Yeah. Wasn't he the guy who was stabbed, like almost stabbed on stage while he was campaigning? I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure.
know.
I think there was some guy that like went on stage with a knife and like almost stabbed him like in the throat. It was wild.
Wow.
And then he didn't end up getting elected to the position. I was like, damn, like that, because everyone was kind of rooting for him after that. But I don't know much about him, but everything I'm hearing, I think that, he'll probably gut like the senseless regulations that really don't do anything to protect the environment. I mean, if you actually look at them, they were to enrich the politicians and stuff the lobbyists wanted, and that's probably what he'll go after. And I think we do need to have a good balance, you know?
I hope he brings back the gas stoves.
Yeah, right. And the gas lawnmowers and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Oh my God, it's funny. So my friends and I have this like group text, and last night my friend takes a picture of the gas pump, and gas was like the lowest it's been in like forever. And she's like, he's not even elected yet, and he's making gas prices great again. And my other friend was pissed because she just bought an electric vehicle. And she's like,
Oh,
this is all bullshit. Like, he's not even in office yet. What the hell? And I'm just like, yeah, but he already talked to Saudi Arabia, and he's like probably making a lot of moves behind the scenes. So yeah, things are already getting better. Um, One of the people that Trump announced last night was John Ratcliffe to be the director of the CIA. And this was the guy that was previously the director of the National Intelligence. Um, and he was actually the one that exposed the Hillary campaign as being the ones who were really behind the Russia collusion hoax. And then he also exposed Hunter Biden's laptop and like the lies that were being told about it when all those intelligence agents, were saying, "Oh, that's not Hunter's laptop." Like he was very outspoken about that. So from that, I think he's a good pick. I don't know much about it, but my heart sank when I saw that because I'm like, "Wait, I thought Kash Patel was going to get that role." And I love Kash Patel.
yeah.
Um and so now I'm hearing that he will probably be the director of the FBI, but it hasn't been announced yet.
That's what I heard because the New York Post is speculating about that. Either that or the director of national intelligence. And I was reading that he was in the running for the CIA spot, but apparently, like the head of the agency threatened to resign or something if he got the spot. So I don't
That
know
would be
what's
like a reason to put him in that spot, right? Like,
you would
uh,
think, yeah. But have you read his book, Government Gangsters?
I haven't read it yet, but I am a huge fan of his and have seen so many podcasts that he's been on
Yes.
talking about it.
Mhm.
And like this truly is a guy who's been outspoken about all of this stuff, the surveillance state, the police state. Like
Yeah.
he is on it. So I should buy the book actually.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet either, but he did a great interview with Sean Ryan like maybe a month ago.
Hmm.
And I really want to read the book. It's on my Amazon list. I just haven't gotten it yet. But speaking of podcasts, so okay, yesterday you sent me this hilarious TikTok parody that was showing Tucker as the new press secretary. And I started cracking up because I was like, oh my God, I totally fucking thought of that. And I was going to say something on Monday but we just didn't bring up Tucker. But what was even funnier was like later in the afternoon, I was listening to his podcast and he did an interview with Joe Polish at the Genius Network. And during the interview, like towards the end, there was a Q&A session and someone asked him if he would be interested in a role in Trump's cabinet. And I want to play what Tucker had to say.
Just introduce yourself and go right ahead. Thank you. David Asarno. If President Trump, Tucker, asked you to be in his cabinet, would you say yes or no and why?
I don't think I'm in danger of that happening. Um, I guess I just proved I'm kind of a lunatic who can't keep his opinions to himself. So probably not the guy you want in your cabinet. Can you imagine being in a cabinet meeting? Gene was murdered. It's like I don't think so. No, I don't think anyone's going to ask me to serve in any position like that. I don't think I'm suited for it. One of the things I have disliked all my life and had no respect for are people who get out of their lane. Do what you're good at. Each person is born. Most of your skills are just inborn. Sorry, no one wants to say that. It's just true. I have a lot of kids. I see it in my kids. I'm sure you see it in your kids. Like that kid is good at one thing, that kid's good at another. The whole point of life is to figure out what the gifts are you were born with that God gave you and hone them and stick with them. Like everyone's like telling kids, well, you should learn to this. No, don't learn to do anything. Take the things that you're naturally good at and become amazing at them. You will be happy and successful if you do that. And I try to apply that to myself. Like I like what I do. I think I'm above average at it. I've done fine doing it. So I'm not a hubris guy. I don't imagine this because I can like do a popular show on the internet that I could, I don't know, run the Treasury Department. I just don't think that. I'm going to do what I do and I'm going to keep doing it until I drop dead. Period. And the other thing is, I just don't like political people.
So
I
I
love
guess
him.
I
I
know.
love him. And like, but Trump is going to need people on the outside too. And like Tucker, because I remember like a long time ago, people asked him, would you ever get into politics? And he was like, I think I'm having more of an impact on
Yeah.
this podcast than if I were, sitting in Washington, D.C. And I think he's right.
I think so too. And like, I loved his answer because I love his podcast. And I really think he just needs to keep doing these incredible interviews. And I would be really like bummed if he didn't.
Okay, but like, so when the joke was going around about him being press secretary, it's so funny because I don't know if you've seen, but lately, like he has been blasting the media in the most hilarious way. So, like, one of the many things that has happened is the New York Times, one of the journalists said at a Madison Square Garden rally in New York, Mr. Carlson's choice of wearing a black and gold, whatever, was a sign of support for the Proud Boys. What is your response? So he responds and he says, Dear Adam, I just received the inquiry you sent about the lie I wore or the tie I wore at Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden on Sunday night. Yes, that is an official Proud Boys necktie. I received it at my Proud Boys initiation ceremony several years ago after swearing a blood oath to the global fascist revolution and the sacred principles of QAnon. As you can imagine, I wouldn't normally admit this. The rules of secret societies being what they are, anything related to dress code is supposed to be confidential. But in this case, I've been outfoxed by your relentless shoe leather journalism. Darn you, New York Times, you win again. And I'm like, it is hilarious. And he's been doing that left and right. And I mean, oh my God, could you imagine if he actually was press secretary, though? That would be
Yeah,
funny.
he's been awesome. Like, up until he did that, I want to call it like the world tour when they were campaigning for Trump.
Mhm.
Like all of his interviews before that were in his studio and they seemed a lot more reserved and he was mostly just asking questions and then letting, whoever he was interviewing do most of the talking. But he probably put out what like 10, 15 episodes during this tour they were doing and I didn't realize how fucking funny he is until listening to all those because he was doing so many monologues without, being free from the whole Fox News shit. And he was just unleashing on everything. And the rants that he was going on, it just made me love him more and more with every episode. So would he make a good press secretary? Absolutely.
And I didn't really like him on Fox News. I was like, he seems so reserved but that was like not him at all. And then too, like when he started his podcast behind the scenes, like the FBI raided his podcast studio, he was being sued left and right. So he was like dealing with a lot, but I feel like he's now just like laughing at all of them. And I love this new Tucker.
Yeah, me too. Okay, who's left? Everything I read is like Marco Rubio is going to be the pick for Secretary of State, but I'm at the point where until I see Trump actually post it on True Social, I'm just kind of like ignoring the media speculation because they have been wrong about several of his picks. And then we still don't know where RFK Jr. fits into the picture. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of like on pins and needles waiting for Trump to give him a role.
It might even be a new role, just like Elon and Vivek got like a completely new role. Whatever it is, though, like his first thing is gonna be like, go ahead, go get Fauci. I know you've been waiting your whole life for this. So yeah, I wonder if he's saving like the best for last, just knowing everyone's like waiting for that.
Yeah, and then I'm reading all this stuff in the MSM, like, oh, he's not going to get a role in Trump's cabinet and Trump's going to turn on him and blah 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 blah. And it's just like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
More propaganda and lies from the media.
Exactly.
Surprise.
Exactly. And so, okay, so on Monday, we were both questioning, well, you brought it up and I didn't know the answer. Like, can Congress members serve multiple duties? And like, neither of us knew the answer. So I looked it up and I found this website called constitution.congress.gov. And I read the answer and I was even more confused than before I looked at it. So I want to get your take on this, but from what I can understand, it seems to be dependent on whether the change in position violates Article 1, Section 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, and it's an ineligibility clause. And it says, quote, the ineligibility clause prohibits a member of Congress from being appointed to a federal civil office that was created or had its compensation increased during the member's elected term. The main intent of this provision is to prevent legislative corruption, whereby members vote to create or increase the remuneration of an office that they expect to occupy themselves. Appointments to such offices are restricted only during the time for which the member was elected. A former member may, for example, be appointed to a federal judgeship created during his term, so long as the appointment is not made until after the expiration of the term, end quote. And then they gave several examples, and one of them was when the U.S. District Court in D.C. dismissed the ineligibility clause challenge when Hillary Clinton was senator and then she got appointed as Secretary of State. And the court said it wasn't a violation because the salary of the Secretary of State position was an increase, but then it was subsequently like decreased during her Senate term, so that when she got the seat, it wasn't an increase in pay. And so, like, what? Does it all just come down to fucking around with the money?
See, this is why I could never be a lawyer or a politician because I just zone out. I'm like, none of this makes sense in my mind. So, okay, here's what I found from congress.gov that kind of made a little more sense, but still leaves me up in the air. But it says that the Constitution requires all House vacancies have to be filled by a special election. And state governors are authorized to issue the orders for special elections. But then with the Senate, there's a non-constitutional provision for the appointment of interim representatives. So with the House of Representatives, you have to hold a special election to fill their vacancy. With the Senate, the governor gets to choose like an interim candidate to be in place until they hold a special election. And so what I was reading and what all these different articles were talking about was how Ron DeSantis will get to choose Marco Rubio's interim replacement if he is picked, which, we don't know for sure yet. But like, so that answers a little bit of the question, but back to my original question, it's like, okay, if there's multiple members of the House and Senate moving to Trump's cabinet and there's all these special elections, isn't it possible then that they could lose the majority during
Right.
special elections? Or is it like the primaries where you only get to vote for your party? So like you can't replace a Republican with a Democrat. It would just be like between Republicans. Like I don't know. That's what I'm still unclear on, and I can't find the answer anywhere.
Yeah, I can't either. And I'm just confused. And I'm like, okay, so we've got Waltz, who's a current rep in the House, and he literally like just won his fourth term in Congress last week, right? So that will leave his seat open. And then you've got Rubio's seat in the Senate, and that's two just from Florida. And I guess like there's several from New York as well.
Mhm.
And I was reading like you were talking about with the special election that they may hold one for Waltz's position next May. But then what does that mean in the interim between May, if he's
Right.
appointed in January, and then what's going on between January and May? And like, I just don't understand what happens with any of these seats. So if anyone
I don't either.
knows,
Yeah.
if anyone knows, let us know.
Right. Especially with the house being so close and we still don't know for sure. It's just like they had to have thought that through, though. I can't
Yeah.
imagine they didn't. So I'm sure there's some kind of explanation where maybe it's like if it's a Republican, then they have an election among the Republican Party. That's what I'm guessing, but again, I don't know for sure. Um, totally kind of off, well, not totally off the subject, but the other big thing that's happening with Trump this week is that New York case that Alvin Bragg brought against him. Judge Mershon, who's like the super biased leftist, he was set to rule this week on whether or not Trump's guilty verdict would still stand, but instead he just delayed it to a later date. So we still don't know, but I'm just thinking like these Democrats really aren't doing themselves any favors. You know, I mean, you're not going to win. Like he is in there, drop the charges, drop the guilty verdict, and let's all move on as a country. But they don't want to do that right now.
No, but speaking of Democrats not doing themselves any favors, we have to talk about Biden. Like, did you see his latest like gaffe in the news?
The only gaff I saw was him walking through the sand at the
Oh,
beach, and he was like hopping like a bunny, and he couldn't like figure out how to walk through the sand. It was
no,
embarrassing.
this one's better because yesterday he met with the Israeli president and a reporter asked him about the Israeli hostages that are being held in Gaza by Hamas. And so the reporter says, President Biden, do you think we can get a hostage deal by the end of your term? And Biden's response was, do you think you can keep from getting hit in the head by a camera behind you? All right. Well, thank you all.
What? What the hell? Oh my God. Okay, he's back to being senile. Like
Oh
there's
my,
the dementia.
it
Oh,
was hilarious. And like I was gonna play the clip, but you can hear her very clearly, but then he's sitting on stage with the Israeli president and it's like so far away. And then as soon as he's like, all right, well, thank you all. Mr. President. And he just like goes into this interview. And I like, Stephanie, somebody needs to write a fucking book that is nothing but Biden's nonsensical comments that he's made for the last 4 years. And I was thinking, like, this would be like an encyclopedia set because it would have to be multiple volumes. There's no way that all the shit that he said could fit in one book.
maybe you should be the one to write that book. I think you would be good at doing that because you've caught all these gaffes and they're
I
nonstop.
I would honestly be surprised if someone isn't already doing that. And if they are, I'm looking forward to reading it.
He's like checked out. He's like, I'm done. I'm not even gonna pretend I'm not checked out. And then also I saw there was some event with Kamala and Jill Biden, and like Jill Biden gave her the cold shoulder the whole time, and you could just see how uncomfortable Kamala felt. And again, I shouldn't enjoy this as much as I do, but I was loving it.
Yeah, and I also like, did you see Melania Trump? Like, she totally declined to meet with Jill Biden when I guess Trump and Biden are meeting. I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, but it's going to be like their first meeting since Trump was chosen. And I guess it's tradition that, they go to the White House and the first lady entertains the incoming first lady. And Melania's like, no, fuck you. You raided Mar-a-Lago. I'm not coming over.
Good. Good
Yeah.
for her. You know, they were so bad to her in the first term. I
Mhm.
hope this time around she's gonna shine because she is like the most poised, gorgeous,
Yes.
her style, everything about her is like iconic. And she is smart too. The media tried to paint her as some like, oh, poor little wife that like he mistreats. No, she is a strong fucking woman and she's incredibly intelligent. And I want to see more of her this term.
Yeah. And she's another one of those who just aged beautifully. Like she's
Hmm.
fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing that we have to get to before we're done today, and we were going to talk about this on Monday, and I'm kind of glad we didn't because more information has come out. But the FEMA whistleblower who came forward last week alleging that disaster relief workers in Florida who responded after Hurricane Milton and what was the other one?
Helene.
Colleen,
Hmm.
that they were instructed to avoid homes with Trump signs. And like I was fucking floored when I first saw this story. I think it initially came out on Saturday. And like, but then I was more floored when FEMA basically admitted that it was all true And they confirmed that a supervisor had given both verbal and written instructions to relief workers who were like canvassing all these homes that were completely ravaged by the hurricane. And she told them to avoid homes advertising Trump, to practice de escalation, and to follow the rules. And the New York Post reported that FEMA employees told them that at least 20 homes with Trump signs or flags, they just passed and ignored them between the end of October into November. And in the FEMA tracking system, they would write, quote, Trump sign, no entry per leadership, end quote. And I think the Daily Wire is the first one that broke the story on Saturday. And when FEMA admitted to what happened, a spokesperson said that it was just an isolated incident, and they basically blamed the supervisor who issued the order. And so FEMA told the Daily Wire, quote, the employee who issued this guidance has no authority and was given no direction to tell teams to avoid these homes. We're reaching out to people who may not have been reached as a result of this incident, end quote. And then FEMA told the New York Post, they said, quote, FEMA helps all survivors regardless of their political preferences, and we are deeply disturbed by this employee's actions. While we believe this is an isolated incident, we have taken measures to remove the employee from their role and are investigating the matter to prevent this from ever happening again, end quote. So this employee, her name is Marnie Washington, and then she was fired from FEMA on Saturday. But since being fired, she's like, fuck y'all. She's not staying quiet. And she did this interview where she let it be known that this practice of avoiding Trump supporters was not just confined to Florida. It was standard protocol, and it also happened in South Carolina. So I want to play part of a clip from an interview that she did with Roland Martin.
For this exclusive interview. Marnie, glad to have you here. So let's walk through this. First of all, when were you notified? Because the Daily Wire said there was a whistleblower who made this point. Go ahead.
I was notified after I demobbed. The next morning, they told me verbally I was fired, but they never provided me anything in writing stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports. They will substantiate what is happening to us in the field.
Okay, she did like a 30-minute interview, and that was just part of it. And she also brought up, she had documentation and like emails where she told her supervisor what they were doing, and her supervisor was like, yeah, that was a good move on your part. So don't tell me they didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Well, yeah, and she brought up the North Carolinas, and I was like, that is exactly what I thought of when I first heard this. I'm like, oh, that's why they're not going to North Carolina, and they weren't like there right away and helping people because it was Trump County. Like, it's just so insane. But like you, I was shocked because I'm like, okay, this is probably a rumor, but they don't have any evidence. No, these idiots put it in writing. It's in text messages, it's in emails. And like she said, that's one incident. So now, as they investigate, they can go through all the documentation for Helene up in North Carolina, for all the areas of Florida, and I'm sure they're going to find a lot more.
Yeah, and I hope they do, because you know what? This is one of the agencies that needs a major fucking overhaul.
Yeah.
And the good thing is now there's both federal and state investigations that are being launched into FEMA. And like, not surprising, FEMA hasn't responded to any of the allegations that have been made by Marnie Washington.
Not surprised, but I mean, I agree. I think they need to completely get rid of FEMA at this point. And why not just give the funding to the states to use it appropriately as natural disasters come through? Because clearly they've shown they're incompetent at managing funds and getting things out in a timely manner. And like, you had mentioned in the beginning, it was the end of October, beginning of November. Milton happened on October 5th. Why are they just now knocking on doors? Like down my street, there are piles and like mountains of branches and trees just sitting on the side of the road that isn't being cleaned up, just stuff like that. It's like they're not doing their job. They're not spending their funds the way they should. Get rid of them and either start fresh or give that money to the states. That's what I think.
Yep. Agreed.
Oh, wow. Well, I think this
I'm-
is just more proof that like truth is coming to light. We are moving into this era where they can't hide anymore. Everything is out in the open for everyone to see. And I'm just getting the popcorn ready and watching it all unfold.
Yes, I am 100% here for it. And like, I don't know if you've noticed the shift in my voice, but I'm just so excited about everything that's been going on for the last week and a half.
I
And
know,
I
I
just, oh,
know,
I love it.
I know. I feel so good about it. Like it does feel differently. The energy in the
Mhm.
air, it's like we really are moving into this golden age. And I'm so happy. It's about damn time. So, all right. Well, that's a positive episode for everyone. Now we can start having positive episodes about all the good shit that's happening. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Friday.